BBC Radio Bristol.
The time now is 26 minutes to 1, and I'm joined in the studio by my two guests making quite a racket. Well, to be honest, it's only Sheila who's making the noise. That's all right, Sheila, that's all right. Sheila Hannon from Show of Strength. Hello, Sheila.
Hello, Steve. Sorry about the noise.
That's all right, doesn't matter. It shows it's live. And the actor, Gerard Cooke. Hello, sir.
Good morning, Steve.
Thank you very much for coming in. Now, Sheila and Gerard are going to tell us about the Treasure Island Story Walk, which is going to take place in the Bristol docks, and it sounds like a lovely event. And Gerard is the actor, an experienced actor. We'll find out more about him in a moment. And Sheila is, I described you earlier on as a theatrical impresario. So
yes, of the small scale, small to medium scale.
You need a cane with a gold top on it, something like that. But thank you so much for coming in. Now, before we talk about the event itself, which sounds fantastic, let's establish your credentials, only in brief. Sheila, where are you from originally? Where were you born?
Liverpool.
Oh, very nice. Did you support Everton or Liverpool?
Well, I tried to avoid it because my father and my brother were both bonkers about football. My uncle played for Everton.
Did he really?
He did.
So really, you ought to support Everton. Yeah, you weren't doing as well as Liverpool. Now, you co-founded Show of Strength in 1986, 31 years ago.
It's too late to get a proper job now, isn't it?
It's quite extraordinary.
It's a long time ago, I know.
Sum up in one sentence what you did prior to that point.
Well, thought about doing it. I was a teacher. I came through teaching and education. And
what was your speciality? So you were a drama teacher.
Yeah, drama and education.
And you co-founded Show of Strength back in 1986. What were your aspirations at the time? What were you hoping to achieve?
Well, the landscape of Bristol theatre, I would say, it was very different back then. There wasn't nearly so much of it. And so there was, I think now there's an awful lot of theatre. It's great. There's an awful lot of theatre companies, there's an awful lot of venues, but there wasn't a lot happening, and there certainly wasn't a lot happening in South Bristol, which was where I was living at the time. So we've always kind of been affiliated and part of, doing stuff around the Bedminster area.
But you've also been part of a sort of wider renaissance of theatre nationwide in that a lot of places have acknowledged the qualities that theatre can add to an area to enhance. I mean, the tobacco factory is the plum example which you've been involved with.
Show of Strength started that theatre.
Yeah, exactly. But it can help rejuvenate an area, can't it, theatre?
Absolutely. And we've done lots of, in a way we've got kind of more... less formal as we've gone on, kind of started off in spaces that were not traditional theatre spaces, like the Hen and Chicken. We started that theatre, and the Tobacco Factory started that theatre, and now we've ended up on the streets, which I quite side. We get worse as we get older. I do like things. It's always been about things that are not informal spaces and that are very accessible and okay. You feel okay about going if you haven't been to the theatre much.
Now, you've done a good deal of writing over the years. In fact, you co-wrote the early shows for Show of Strength. You've written for stage and radio. I see that one show you did on the radio was with Sandy Tossick. That must have been a fun experience. That
was great. I did wrote a radio play that she was in called The Female Husband. It was based on a true story from Somerset of a woman in the middle of the 18th century who lived as a man and actually got married as a man.
Gosh.
Extraordinary story.
Well, she's an interesting character in her own right, isn't she? And just continue to do great things on radio and on television.
Sandy Toxic, absolutely extraordinary. I don't know how she does it.
Now, you've been involved in so many productions over the years. As you mentioned, you created the Hen and Chicken and the Tobacco Factory theatres. You've encouraged a lot of new writing, and you've worked with Kim Hicks over the years, haven't you? Yeah,
in fact, I just saw Kim yesterday plotting our next thing. We did a show Kim and I did a show 10 years ago, which I wrote for her, called An Audience with Sarah Guffey, all about that Bristol-based extraordinary woman who painted all kinds of things. As a result, things take time, don't they, sometimes to come to and they continue to develop. And since we did that show in 2006, we've got Sarah Guffey in the Oxford Dictionary of National Biography.
Oh, well done.
I've had a lot of help with research from Madge Dresser, who's historian from UWE, and also an independent researcher called Peter Ravel, and we've come up with an awful lot of new stuff, some really exciting new stuff. So that show at the moment, where I'm rewriting it, it's nearly done with all this new information, because we found out some amazing stuff about her.
It was all from an original idea of yours then, was it?
It was, yes. She was very, very unknown then.
So how did you come across her in the first place?
Well, actually, I have to be honest, I'm far too... there was something all those years ago that somebody showed me something. I think it was in the Bristol Observer, just a tiny little piece about this extraordinary woman who'd lived in Bristol called Sarah Guffey, and a couple of things she'd done. She kind of patented an exercise bed, and so she's known for kind of some quite eccentric things, but she did an awful lot of serious things as well. But 10 years ago, there was absolutely nothing had ever been seriously written, very little about her. very little, and still we're still discovering some really fascinating stuff about her. For example, I don't want to give too much away, and I've come in to talk about another show, but we've discovered this, particularly Peter Revell, who's given me a lot of help. Her husband Samuel Duffy went to America, and this is like 1794, and he's manufacturing nails in America, and we're discovering all kinds of links that we had no idea about. We don't know whether she went there or not. There's a lot of stuff we don't know, but there's still some fascinating stuff coming up.
I can see a TV series in that, I have to say. You've also, of course, hosted loads of workshops over the years. Let's turn our attention to Gerard. You trained, I think, at the University of Wales, didn't you? Is that right?
That's correct, yeah.
What was your actual course title there?
It was a theatre studies course, and I went straight into professional acting from that.
Gosh, so you wanted to be an actor clearly from a pretty young age, did you?
It was something that developed. I never had one of those lightning flash moments of this is what I want to be. It was something that grew and grew, that sort of love and passion.
Were your parents disappointed that you didn't go into something lucrative?
No, absolutely devastated. No, they've always been really supportive.
Now, you've done a wide range of productions over the years, looking through all the shows you've been. I mean, a really wide range. Lots of Shakespeare, of course, which is good grounding, isn't it? Looking at your stage work over the years, what are the highlights for you? What have you enjoyed the most?
There was a great production in Bristol with Theatre West, which was The Dark Room. That was playing a guy he'd been a codebreaker at Bletchley Park. But he had all sorts of skeletons that rattled out of a cupboard, all sorts of secrets he didn't want to be found out, and of course eventually they were by the end of the show. I've done quite a few things with Sheila with Show of Strength, the theatre and shops trading local projects in Crewkerne and Brislington and in Bedminster as well.
And you've done some interesting stuff. I see that you were in Monarchy, the David Starkey TV series. You played George Plantagenet, one of these sort of costume extracts that they put into historical programmes.
That's right.
Did you enjoy that?
I did. You basically just stand there looking moody and not saying anything. That's more or less it. Funnily enough, I played George, Duke of Clarence, but Shakespeare's take on him later on in Richard III.
Well, it was good grounding then, wasn't it? You've also done TV commercials, including you were the bakery stall keeper for Lidl. And, I clearly watched that when it was on television, and I thought you were an actual baker. I didn't realise you were an actor, charlatan.
Yeah, I was a master baker, yes.
Yeah. But actually, the spread of breads looks lovely in front of you. Where was that actually filmed?
That was just off Brick Lane in London.
Yeah. For people that haven't seen it, in fact, there was a series of adverts for Lidl where they codded up sort of artisan producers like you, and there were other people selling other stuff, and then the big reveal at the end was it was actually on sale at Lidl, one thing or another. What was it like as an experience actually doing that?
It was good. The take on it, by and large, was actually really positive. That you've got this experience that takes people by surprise. It's something new for them.
Yeah, because the price was cheaper clearly than what they'd expect to buy for artisan products.
Yes, absolutely,
considerably.
Yeah.
In fact, some breads I've seen on sale for £6. You've got to draw the line somewhere, haven't you? I mean, dear oh dear. You also made a pilot for a sitcom based on a role-play game shop. I watched the pilot earlier on. It's good fun, but presumably that never got taken on.
I think they're still in talks, basically. The producers of that, the production company called Evil Genius, and the sitcom pilot called Games Night, they're in talks with production companies to try and get that taken up as a series, yeah.
Yeah, well, good luck with that. You've also done a number of short film works. You've done some commercial voiceovers and Radio 4 work as well. What's it like working on Radio 4?
In Radio 4, that was good. So it was a couple of things I did in Bristol, actually, with Sarah Davies. There was one where I played F. Scott Fitzgerald in 1920s Paris. That was good fun.
It's a lot easier than doing it on a stage where people are going to look at you. I mean, you could turn up wearing anything, couldn't you?
You
for
could
radio
have your
work?
script in front of you as well. It's very, very handy.
Fabulous. Well, you're appearing in the Treasure Island Story Walk. This unique promenade piece and one-person show will take the audience point to point through Bristol's old city and docks, retelling Robert Louis Stevenson's classic story along the streets which inspired him. And of course, Sheila, this is a tie-in with the Long John Silver Trust, who have had a trail on the streets of Bristol for a couple of years now, haven't they?
That's right. They've kind of, if you wander around the docks area, there are 8 barrels in different places, and they mark the links between the Treasure Island story and things that happened in Bristol.
Yeah, because the story all began 250 years ago in the Bristol docks. You've got Squire Trelawney, who's the sort of central figure in the story. He sets sail in the Hispaniola and takes Long John Silver with him, who's got a pub, the Spyglass, on the docks in Bristol. And you've got Jim Hawkins and the rest of the crew, and they're looking for the treasure of Captain Flint. It's also evocative. I mean, it's all so much fabric of our lives, isn't it? There's been so many interpretations over the years, but it starts here in Bristol, doesn't it?
It does. And Jim Hawkins, the sort of the boy who's the cabin boy, goes off on his big adventure. He lives in Devon. We actually start right down in Devon, and his family have a little pub in a cove, like a smuggler's cove in Devon called the Admiral Benbow, and the pirates rock up there trying to find Captain Flint's treasure map. And then we all move to Bristol because we've got the map. Jim Hawkins has the map, or rather Squire Trelawney has the map. We need a ship to sail, and Trelawney comes to Bristol to find a schooner. Yes.
And Gerard, you're the professional actor
Yes,
playing in this. You've got a couple of extracts for us. Let's just hear the first one. Just set the scene before you read it.
Actually, there's one thing we do want to set the scene with very quickly, which I don't know whether you know this, Steve, but in Robert Louis Stevenson's book, Long John Silver, the infamous Long John Silver, has a nickname. He's the ship's cook, so he's called Barbecue. Now, I didn't know where the word barbecue came from, so I'm reading the book and I'm thinking, that barbecue's a bit 1960s. I don't think it was around in the 1750s. Why does he call him Barbecue? And Robert Louis Stevenson doesn't say this in the book, but what's the origin of the word barbecue? It was actually pirate lingo for human meat.
Gosh.
If you're marooned and starving on the island, you're reduced to barbecue.
Gosh. And me as a vegetarian, I'd be stuck, wouldn't I? Gosh, that is interesting. OK, let's hear the first extract then. What have you picked for us, first of all?
Okay, so this is the third scene. We're close to the Spyglass, which in reality in Bristol, that's the hole-in-the-wall pub. Jim's arrived in Bristol, Squire Trelawney's given him the note to take to the ship's cook, Long John Silver. He meets Long John Silver for the first time. The Spyglass was full of sailors, but Jim spotted Long John Silver immediately. His left leg was cut off at the hip, and he had a crutch under his arm and a parrot on his shoulder. Then a customer stood up to leave, and Jim couldn't believe his eyes. "Black Dog!" Jim shouted. "It's Black Dog!" But the villain had reached the door and escaped into Bristol docks. Long John Silver was horrified when Jim told him who it was. "A pirate, and I've seen him in here afore. Smart as paint you be, Jim, lad. Seen it as soon as you comes in. And now we're shipmates, you best meet Captain Flint. Been all around the world as this parrot. Belonged to the pirate of the same name. Madagascar and Malabar. Providence and Portobello. Africal, Asial and Indial. First time I sees Captain Flint, she looks me straight in the eye and shouts, 'Barbecue!' Good name for a ship's cook, barbecue, so I keeps it. But it don't mean sausages, Jim lad, and it don't mean steak. Barbecue is pirate lingo for human meat. And if ever I sets eyes on that there Black Dog again, it'll be instant barbecue. I gives you my word on that, shipmate."
Gosh, that was wonderful. In fact, I've only heard extracts in the past recited by Mark Steeds, the publican, and he's awful. That was so much more professional. I mean, he's not a trained actor. Now,
We love him, though, to bits, Mark Steeds.
He's brilliant. Now, I should mention that you previously have done Frankenstein in Bath. In fact, I think you're bringing it back in July, aren't you? Which was a similar sort of thing, wasn't it?
It was. In a way, we've now got two theatrical walking tours. We did Frankenstein in Bath for the grown-ups. It's a kind of adult thing, and that's actually, at the moment, we're up for Best Live Performance in Bath in the Creative Bath Awards, so we find that out next month. Yeah, so Frankenstein in Bath is the grown-up theatrical walk in Bath, and this now is our Bristol story for families.
And Frankenstein is returning in the summer, isn't it?
It's coming back from the 1st of July. Yeah, we'll be doing 3 months again, 1st of July to the end of September.
So, Gerard, you're going to be wandering around the dock from these 8 points, one to another, and sort of reciting extracts from the story as you go.
That's right, yes. So we begin at the Merchant Venturers Almshouses, which are on the end where King Street and Prince Street meet. So we begin there and then snake our way around the docks, telling selections of the story as we go along.
In period costume?
Of course, dressed up as pirates.
And I understand, Sheila, there's an interesting interpretation of Ben Gunn, isn't there?
Yes, there's a very interesting interpretation of Ben Gunn, because I think I've got the whole book in my head, and sometimes I forget bits and I get it wrong. But I don't think Robert Louis Stevenson actually states where Ben Gunn is from.
No,
he's been shipwrecked trying to steal the map several years ago. That's how he ends up, and he's cast adrift several years ago by Flint, and he's been on this island several years now. We don't really know where he's from, but we've got we've got Gerard. The other two actors who are doing this show with us are the wonderful Nadia Williams and Kiris Riviere, and they both have backgrounds from the Caribbean. And so when we were rehearsing, we were working out how we were going to do Ben Gunn. You know, is he Welsh? Is he Irish? I think Gerard's Ben Gunn is Irish. And actually, he could be Jamaican, couldn't he? So we've got a Jamaican. Yeah, when Kiris and Nad do the show, we've got a Jamaican Ben Gunn.
That's
he
lovely.
Sounds great.
And of course, that association with the Caribbean and with rum and it's very evocative, isn't it?
And piracy.
Yeah,
yes,
of course. How are you going to stop people who haven't paid tagging along and listening?
Well, we just hope that they're honest folk.
Yes.
Which
and not vagabonds and buccaneers.
we'll
That's the
politely
stories that we tell.
suggest that
Yes.
they pay. We
'Cause
have ways of making them
There
pay.
is a charge, isn't there? And
Yeah.
people start at the Merchant Venturers Almshouse, as you mentioned, at the end of King Street. Basically, it's the opposite end to the Landogger Trow. Those almshouses themselves are very interesting, but that's where the first planter is, where the story begins. And how long does it take? About an hour or so?
It's about an hour or so, that's correct, yeah.
Okay, well, let's have another extract then. What have you got here?
Thank you. Well, this is actually where we meet Ben Gunn for the first time. So Jim thought he could trust Long John Silver. He's discovered that Long John Silver isn't the trustworthy man, stand-up figure that he suspected him to be. So Jim, basically, he had to leg it. Jim jumped overboard, swam as fast as he could, scrambled to his feet, ran and kept on running. Over the sand, into the trees, with no idea where he was going. A sudden movement made him stop. A strange, hairy figure hiding behind a tree. Was it a bear? Then it charged, and Jim saw a human face. It was a man wrapped in tattered old canvas and goat skins. Ben Gunn I be, marooned here to live on goats and berries. Have you got any cheese, boy? I dreams of toasted cheese. I smells it, I almost tastes it, and then I wakes up. What's your name, boy? Jim, my first human being in 3 long years, Jim. That ain't Flint's ship, is it? Jim said Flint was dead, but his men were on the island to find the treasure. He had to get back to his friends on the ship, but he didn't know how. You need a boat, Jim, and Ben Gunn can help you 'cause he's built one. Then Jim can bring him cheese and take him home to England. You'll help poor Ben Gunn if he helps you, won't you, Jim? Jim agreed, and Ben took him to the island's highest point to see the ship. They looked down, and Jim saw the British flag being lowered and the Jolly Roger raised. The pirates had control of the Hispaniola.
Wow. He's good, isn't he?
He's great.
It's a very good booking. We should mention that the Treasure Island Story Walk is on the Bristol docks. It's at 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. from the 27th of May to the 4th of June. As Gerard mentioned, it lasts about an hour. What would you say to encourage people to go along then, Sheila?
You'll see Bristol like it might. You'll see pictures in your head as well as you'll see the actor performing, and you'll see it will take you back to Bristol, to the Bristol of 250 years ago.
Lovely. Well, it sounds like a super event, and people can find out more details at showatstrength.org.uk. The Long John Silver Trust.co.uk is also affiliated to this. And what about you, Gerard? What's next for you beyond this? Because it's difficult being an actor these days, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's hopes, I suppose, that after this half-term event, that this is going to roll out into the summer as well.
If it's successful, so come now and
Yes.
make it a success.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. And then the life of a jobbing actor.
Lovely. Well, thank you so much for coming today. I see you've brought a little black spot with you. I don't know if I want to take that off
That's
you.
right,
A small
the black
present for you,
spot.
Oh
Steve.
dear, I don't want to take the black spot. I'll pass it on to Martin.
It means your number's up.
Exactly. Thank you so much for coming today. Real pleasure to meet you.
Thank you
very
very
much
much
indeed.
There you go. Sheila Hannon from Show of Strength, Gerard Cooke, the professional actor, and you can see Gerard in the role of the Treasure Island Story Walk, Bristol Docks. It's 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. from the 27th of May to the 4th of June. It lasts about an hour. You wander around the dockside in Bristol, and it starts, you meet at the Merchant Venturers Almshouse, which is at the end of King Street. It's the end of King Street, the opposite end to the Landogger Trow. It's easy to find. It's a lovely place. More details, showofstrength.org.uk, and you can also look at longjohnsilvertrust.co.uk.